My dad and I actually sat down, and this was sort of a turning point for me, where he said, Schuyler, you've already gotten all these things, the national record, the nationals teams, the competing with the Olympians, and where are you? Miserable, in a treatment center, not knowing who you are. I was like, wow, you're right. I should take the risk for something else. I should take this risk to really be happy and be myself and be that authenticity everywhere I can be. Hi, my name is Schuyler Bailar. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the first openly transgender athlete to compete on any Division I men's team in the NCAA. I was 10 months old when I started Mommy and Me swim lessons. I always loved the water. I think it was just a place that I felt at home and felt safe. I was actually pretty terrible at it initially, but I got better and better as I swam, and I had a drive to be the best at something. Went to junior nationals, I went to nationals, and then my next goal was Olympic trials, but at the time I then was struggling with mental health. When I went to mental health treatment and went to residential treatment for my eating disorder, the first major thing that I learned about myself was that I'm transgender. And I think that was a huge opening and breaking of myself that said, hey, like, we got to figure out what's inside here, right? You've spent years of your life running from all these things, and you need to address them.
As I am about to start my physical transition, FTM, female to male, and I thought that it would be good to document it.
Halfway through treatment, I told my coach I'm transgender. I've never been really one to hold back that kind of stuff. I just was like, listen, I'm transgender, now what? And my coach was just like, well, I don't know anything about trans people, but we'll figure it out. And so that was an initial point of stability, right? Hey, we'll figure this out, don't worry. And then over time, it became more clear that I wanted to transition, that I wanted to be presenting myself as male, to live truly as myself. And when that came about, she talked to the men's coach, and the men's coach said, swim for me. You're a dude, you are already accepted into Harvard, you want to swim for Harvard? Well, I coach the men's swim team at Harvard. That makes sense. So instead of having to feel like I had to prove myself to my coach, I was like, I have to swim. I remember in college just like feeling like a breaking in the best way possible, when people gendered me correctly and they called me the right pronouns. When I walked to the men's team and I saw my locker and I thought, this is me. Like, this is all of me right here in a men's locker room, right? Sometimes I think I still feel emotional about that, because I think it was something that I needed for so long. There are so many bills right now in the country trying to bar trans athletes from doing exactly that. And so many of them are kids. I mean, I was 18, 19, 20 when I figured this out, and I had so much more support. And so I was able to walk through it. There's an emotion that maybe you saw in me as I'm saying this, like there's a bittersweet nature to my feeling proud and feeling aligned and feeling happy about being able to have my locker in the men's locker room and be on the men's swim team, because there's a grief there that so many kids are having taken from them right now. I finished my swim career in 2019 with the close of the college season. And when I started college, my goal was to not get last. And as I kind of moved through college, I thought, okay, now I can be like just one better than the last person. But by the end of my college career, I actually ended up doing fairly well. I did end in the top third of people in D1 100 breaststroke and D1 100 butterfly. And I was actually in the top 15% of all of division. I did not at all attain the success that I would have, numerically speaking, that I would have had on the female side. And yet, I still feel like I came away with tons of gold medals. They just weren't for swimming.
Now joining us with more on his story and how everyone can support the trans community, welcome Schuyler Bailar. Hi, Schuyler.
Hi, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, and congratulations. This is such a highly debated topic. Do you think that we are getting somewhere? Do you think that you are laying the groundwork here?
I sure hope so. I think that the primary thing I'm trying to push forward is education. I think a lot of the people who resist trans athletes competing in sports are resisting from a place of fear, from a place of ignorance, from a place of not true science. And what I hope that I'm giving people by sharing my story and sharing education about this is more facts, right? More reality about this issue. Right.
Schuyler, there are some people out there that make the argument that if a boy makes the transition to a girl, the boy is physically stronger by genetics. What do you say to those people?
The first thing I always say is somebody who is assigned male at birth but is a girl, right? So trans girls are girls, they're not boys. And that's really important to recognize. That's the first thing. The second thing, that when you move beyond language, is what people talk about when they bring up fairness and they bring up genetics, they bring up biology. My first thing is genetics don't do anything if we're not talking about biology. So genetics are actually irrelevant. If we want to talk about biology, we have to remember right now that these bills are attacking children. These are kids, right? They're not Olympians, they're not professional athletes, these are not elite level sports, right? These are children. And most kids don't even exhibit any biological differences except for the presence or absence of a penis. And I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody who plays a sport with that part.
Right. Schuyler, I want to ask you this, and you were talking about bills and growing up. Just on Monday, the Supreme Court left in place a decision that allowed a transgender student to use the bathroom that corresponds with how they identify. I know you also have very personal stories about this very subject matter growing up. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. When I was a kid, I presented very much as a boy, right? So I wore lots of boys' clothes. I had short hair. Most people thought that I was a boy if I didn't say anything about it. But because I was assigned female at birth and everybody said that I was a girl, I used the girls' bathroom. But I was thrown out of every single girls' bathroom I entered. People always yelled at me. They'd ask me why I was in there. They'd be like, "You look like a boy, get out of here." And that was so nerve-wracking that I would run from one end of the school to the other end to find the teacher's bathroom, because the teacher's bathroom was a single stall. And I was like, okay, better to risk getting in trouble for that than to get yelled at by all the girls, right? So I've been very stressed in bathrooms, and that's not unique for me. It is actually rare that I didn't get beat up, whereas a lot of other trans kids might get beat up in the bathrooms too.
Yeah, it looked like those pictures at Harvard. It was a pretty joyous occasion. How did your teammates treat you there?
I was treated with a lot of inclusion and respect at Harvard, and I think a lot of that came from the coach as well. I got very lucky to have a coach who understood things about trans people and who was very accepting. And then beyond that, I think the ignorance was met with curiosity as opposed to resistance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. How can allies stand up and help the trans community? What can people do who want to help?
The most important thing you can do for trans people that's simple, impactful, is call us by the right name and right pronouns always. You can also add your pronouns to your Instagram bio, and you can put it in your email signatures. You can put your pronouns when you introduce yourself, and that helps create a safe place for trans people to introduce ourselves with our name and pronouns. And it helps dismantle this idea that the way that we look doesn't always show our gender identities or our pronouns.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, with the bills specifically, you can learn, first of all, the proper science and facts behind it, but you can also contact your state governors, you can contact your House reps, and you can tell them, please veto these anti-trans bills.
Yeah, we're just about out of time, Schuyler, but tell us quickly about your new book. I know it's currently for pre-order.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Obi is Man Enough. It's about a Korean-American transgender swimmer who is not me. He's 13 years old. It's a fictionalized book that's really just trying to show that trans people are more than just trans. Trans people are every kind of people out there, and humanize us a little bit more. So I hope that everybody can read it to learn a bit more about trans people.
Yeah, Schuyler, thank you so much for sharing your story and being with us.
Thank you for having
all the
me.
best. Just teach me how to swim one day. That's it.
Come by, I will. Thank you for having me.
You're going to need a lot of work.
Yes, I can attest to that. All right, thank you, Schuyler. If you'd like to pre-order his book, Obi is Man Enough, or learn more about fighting anti-trans legislation, head to pinkmantaray.com or follow Schuyler on Instagram at pinkmantaray.